Greetings, initiates. Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master here. Today, I wanted to actually talk about how my work kind of relates to, the external world, the external outcome that you're trying to achieve, and how that kind of relates to the internal world of the things that I work on. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so let's say you come to me with an issue of procrastination and you want to be able to start doing work immediately and not have any hesitation with it, right? So that's kind of like our stated outcome here, right? So what we'll be working towards is trying to fix that procrastination. Now, the issue is that it's not necessarily a simple answer to why you procrastinate, right? A lot of things that contribute to that, right? So if we zoom out here a little bit, we see that those contributing factors are most of the time limiting beliefs and traumas, right? So you have traumas around working, where you have beliefs about whether you'll be successful or whether you're good enough or not good enough or things like that. And that leads to the ultimate outcome of procrastination. You could have one thing that's related, or you could have a whole bunch of things that are related. It could be 100 different things that contribute to why you procrastinate, right? And it really depends on how you were raised, how your mind is wired, how everything has kind of shaken out in your life, right? So if you start working with me, there are several ways you can start working with me. One is just by removing one trauma, right? So the benefit of taking out one trauma is it's now totally gone, right? So it's actually completely gone. It will not come back, right? And so what that'll do is just give you a chance to work with me, right? Just to see one of my methodologies, just see how powerful it is, how effective it is. And then once you see that, you can make the choice to, okay, start to work on some of the other traumas, some of the other beliefs, right? So even if you just keep kind of whacking at different traumas, you know, one here, one there, it's not necessarily going to move the needle on your ultimate outcome, right? So that's really, I just do that for just kind of testing the waters to, see how we like working together, right? But what I would really recommend is actually doing a full session with me. And when you do a full session with me, we can usually knock out 3 or 4, you know, sometimes 5 or 6 things, depending on how big they are, right? And we can really, really move the needle quite a bit on that ultimate outcome, right? Now, the issue is that sometimes you have a lot of different issues, right? Maybe it's not just procrastination. All right, so let me put those there. Sometimes you have procrastination and anxiety, right? So it's like, okay, not only do you hold off on doing the work, but when, say, the deadline causes you to actually, motivate yourself to work, then now you're anxious. Now you're freaking out, you're panicking about the deadline on top of the procrastination, right? So now the problem is actually expanded, right? So you have all of these beliefs and traumas that are causing you to procrastinate. You have all of these beliefs and traumas that are causing you to be anxious, right? And it can kind of expand from there as well. So let's say not only do you have anxiety and procrastination, but you have depression, right? And one of your traumas that's causing you to procrastinate is also causing you to be depressed, right? And that often happens where one trauma will actually contribute to multiple problems. And you can have the same thing with a belief. So maybe a belief that's causing you to be depressed is also causing the anxiety when you're actually working, right? And it really just depends on how your mind is wired. And then we have addiction, right? So addiction is same thing, comes down to, beliefs and traumas. Now, so what I do is I would just go through and start whacking at each thing. As the more we work together, not only does it provide a cumulative effect the longer you work with me, but it also provides an exponential effect because we're also working on some of these cross-linked issues, right? And like I said, probably 95% of your issues are going to be traumas and beliefs. Some people have multiple personalities. Some people have, um, you know, imprints and demons and, curses and some of the spiritual stuff. But I'm going to assume that that's probably rare. and most people can get by just working on traumas and beliefs, which is a little bit more down to earth and more easily understood. Now, let's say your ultimate goal is focus, right? Because a lot of the people that I've worked on have had ADHD, and it definitely affects your focus, right? So you actually have to zoom out quite a bit further here. So as we work together, focus is kind of like, one of the last things to fall in place, because any problem, no matter how big or no matter how small, can actually pull your focus away, right? So let's say you have a massive trauma that every time you try and do something, it makes you like freak out and climb a wall. Well, that's going to stop you from doing the work and stop you from focusing. So you could also have a small thing, right? So let's say you have a belief that your desk has to be perfect before you can work, and so when you try and work and there's like one pencil out of whack, then you'll be like, oh, I got to fix that pencil before I can work, right? So that would be, say, something more like OCD, right? So the thing is that it all breaks down to traumas and limiting beliefs. It's just a matter of which problem gets fixed quicker and which problem gets fixed, eventually, right? And focus is usually one of the last things to fall into place, because any trauma, any belief is enough to kind of pull that away. But once we get rid of all that stuff, we shut down all of that malicious programming, then you can actually be able to focus, no problem. And with everything else that I do, you'll actually be able to focus better than someone who hasn't worked with me, right? So even someone who quote unquote has a label, right, from the medical industry, labels don't matter, but they can actually perform at a higher level than people who have not had their traumas and limiting beliefs removed, right? So that's how I would work when we work together. Now, you'll have other modalities out there that what they do is they kind of run a bypass. So let me show what that would look like. So let's say procrastination, right? So what they would do is they would create a bypass, and they would convince your brain that none of these are a problem and you can still take action immediately despite all of this stuff being there, right? So that's one type of bypass. That would be like an NLP bypass or reframe, right? Neuro-linguistic programming. So as you can see, it does kind of get you to take action maybe quicker, but it leaves all of these malicious programs there and they don't turn off. So what's going to happen is that you're taking action, but in the background of your mind, the stress is still there. Like it's causing you to still freak out on a subconscious level, and you're not even aware of it because they've turned off the emotion. And so eventually what's that's going to lead to is burnout, and then your whole mind falls apart, and then you end up in like a psychotic break, right? So that's the issue of using some of these other modalities that don't actually treat the root problems. They just run a bypass around the problems. And I've never seen another methodology ever, and none of my clients have either, that actually deals with the root problem, right? So even with some of these other modalities, say like RTT or RRT, that supposedly deal with trauma specifically, what they do is run a bypass as well, right? So let's say like in inner child work. So basically imagine yourself as a child, and then while that situation is taking place, you imagine, say, like the adult version of you comes back and rescues the child and puts you in a safe place. Now, that doesn't actually stop your mind from believing that that event took place, and therefore the trauma is still there. All it does is create like a psychological separation. So you'll feel better, right? It'll cut off your emotion because you're running off an emotional bypass, but you still have those programs running. They're still affecting you. They're still affecting your behavior. They're still affecting how you view the world, and you don't even know they're there because you've basically just turned off the fire alarm, right? So really, like, when you choose to work with me, right? Yeah, yes, I do have a one trauma removal, and I can just knock out one thing, and it is quick. It takes 5 minutes to knock out a trauma. You have to be realistic about the amount of problems that you have, right? And they can all be broken down into traumas and limiting beliefs. But if you think that 5 minutes is going to fix every single problem in your life, you probably don't have realistic expectations, right? But the more we work together, right? Like I said, it's not only cumulative, but it is exponential as well. The more you work with me, like the more you'll just like skyrocket past everyone around you, the more that we remove, and it never comes back. And you eventually become to this point where you're basically superhuman, because we have removed all of the stuff that's causing all of these external problems in your life, and you can work harder, faster, quicker, better, stronger than anyone around you, and you can apply that to pretty much anything that you want to do, because everything that's holding you back is now gone. So this is kind of a breakdown of the problems in your world and how they relate to the problems in your mind. And it's only when you really start to get rid of every single belief and trauma, now your procrastination is gone, boom, 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 right? Now your anxiety is gone. Well, that one too, right? And now, now we're working on the depression, right? Once you get rid of all of this stuff, right? You like completely clear the board, then the focus like you would not believe. Like that's what I call like a permanent flow state, where you're just like you perform and there's nothing holding you back. And that's like electrically speaking, a circuit with zero resistance. Unheard of in real electrical engineering, because things have an actual real resistance in terms of the world, but in terms of the mind, you can actually remove all of the resistance, and perform at a level that you never even believed was possible, right? But now you're doing it and completely effortlessly. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this. Once again, I'm Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master. Check out my link and Facebook below. Send me a message if you want to work with me, if you saw the video, and we'll talk about how that will work. All right, have a great one. Once again, Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master. Take care. Bye.